Hi everyone, it's Tim here. So as you can probably tell, I've got myself a thermal camera. Now this was sent to me by the folks from TOPDON, and it's the TC001 thermal camera that you can plug into a phone. So Android or Apple, there's different versions. They sent me the Android one, and I'm going to take it around the house and I'm going to show you what sort of things it can do, and primarily looking for hot spots and cold spots to see where the heat is leaking out of my house. First up, let's do a quick unboxing, shall we? Okay, so this is the TOPDON TC001 thermal camera, and this is the version that attaches to Android phones. So let me just take it out of the box and show you what we got. Comes in a nice little carry case. We've got the instructions booklet there as well. I won't bother going into that because it's actually pretty straightforward, it's pretty obvious what you do. There you go, dinky little camera, and there's your USB-C for connecting it to Android. The Apple version comes with a different connector, obviously, for the iPhone, and we've also got this nifty little cable, which I will show you in a second because that's quite useful. But that you can use that to connect to your PC, but there's another feature you can use it for as well. And now, so I'm just going to unlock my phone. I've already downloaded the TC001 app. And as soon as you plug it in, it should launch the app automatically, which it's done. And then you click on thermal imaging. It takes a second to equilibrate, but then you can see you can start to get the thermal image. You can also, if I just pull it out and flip it around, I'm going to just tell that I'm okay with it having disconnected, and now you can see, there you go, there's me. And one thing you can do here, this isn't a full review by the way, this is just me showing you what it's like to use when it comes to finding hot spots and cold spots in your house. But there are a few things you can do here. You can change the color scheme and stuff like that, and change the contrast and all that other stuff. With this one here, you can mirror it so that it's like in selfie mode, which is a bit more appropriate for when you've got it facing the camera or facing yourself in this direction. But if you've got it pointing away, so let's flip that back round and put it back in that way round, then you don't want it mirrored because obviously it's just pointing out in front like that. One useful feature that I do use is for you can take photos and take videos as well, which is really useful, and I'm going to show you that in the walkthrough of the when I walk through the house to show you all the hot spots and cold spots. I'm actually going to video it on the phone and then talk over that later. But something that's really useful that you can do is add in the image of what the actual camera, the visible camera, is showing from the phone. And so you can see here, you can drag it around and expand it, and then if you press this button here, you can change the transparency of it, so you can see what the camera is looking at. So let's see that there's the TV, and you can see that it blends between the thermal and the visible. So that's really neat, and I'll show you that in the walkthrough. But I found that particularly useful feature for doing comparisons. But there you go. Yeah, it's pretty easy to use. You get a little indicator of what temperature the center is showing, and then the range from warm to hot changes automatically as you move it around. Which means that you don't need to worry about the contrast. You can fix that in place if you want to, but I don't feel the need for that most of the time. It's pretty easy to just move it around, and it will do that adjustment for you on its own. So there you go. That's the little unboxing and quick demo. I'm going to take this around the house and show you afterwards what I find. But before I do that, one thing I forgot to mention just now was actually this little cable. You can connect it in to the camera here, and then actually it's got a little USB-C on the other end, or just a standard USB-A if you prefer. And you can plug that into the camera, into your phone instead. And then you can just move this around independently, which is really neat. So yeah, that's helpful in some limited cases, I think, but you get the idea. So there you go. Right, now I'm going to go and take this around the house and show you what it can do. Okay, so I started in a sort of reasonably familiar location in our lounge where we've got our TV, and you can see here we've got a soundbar underneath, and this is a surround sound speaker actually that we use for our sort of cinema setup. You can see that the TV is very slightly warmer than the wall. I think we'd had the TV on a few minutes prior to me recording this, and the soundbar you can see is slightly warmer. But let me roll the footage, and actually I want to show you the most interesting bit is in fact the skirting board. You see now down the bottom there. Is actually slightly cooler than the rest of the wall. If I pause it there, all of this is very slightly cooler than the rest of the wall here. Now, I'm not entirely sure why that is, and honestly I don't know there's a lot I can do about that, short of taking off the skirting board to see what's behind there, but I can only assume that, yeah, it's leaking a little bit of heat out for some reason. Not entirely sure why. So let's carry on rolling the footage. And I'm going to pull out in a second and actually show you the air conditioning unit that's on our wall that's currently running in heating mode. You can see that obviously it's pretty warm, as you'd expect. Actually, if I pull back a little bit further, you can see something really interesting on the wall here. These small, sort of slightly darker patches that are a little bit cooler than the rest of the wall. Now, I believe that this is due to the structure of the wall itself. So we have brick on the outside of our house, a gap where there's insulation. Then on the inside there's blockwork, and then obviously the plasterboard is attached to that blockwork. Now it's attached using little dabs of mortar. Now I think this is where those dabs of mortar are, these little dark patches, and those obviously create a thermal bridge between the plasterboard and the inner blockwork. So whereas there's a small air gap between the plasterboard and most of the wall, there's the dabs here actually allow some of the heat to get conducted through, which I think is really interesting. Obviously there's absolutely nothing I can do about that, but yeah, I just found that really interesting, so I thought I'd share that with you, obviously. So now you can see obviously the rest of the room is quite warm, but the window frames themselves are really cold. They're significantly colder than the rest of the building. So we have metal window frames. They are quite modern ones, and they've got a thermal break in between. You can see there's a sort of plastic sort of break between the inner and the outer metal components of the frame. But obviously these are still letting some heat out through the building. The window frames themselves are significantly colder than the rest of the room, as you can see. So yeah, I then moved into the kitchen, and the one thing I was really interested in was this vent. So this is our extractor fan in the ceiling here, and you can see that is definitely significantly colder than the rest of the kitchen. Now the fan isn't on in this particular situation, and what I think is happening is cold air is blowing into the vent basically from outside. So the vent actually the tube that takes the air out to the outside. There's a vent on the outside of the wall on this wall here. Now what I think is happening is the wind is blowing against that and blowing cold air in to the kitchen. Interesting, what I did later was I actually turned on the extractor fan when we were cooking, and I took some footage as well. I didn't actually record that, but this vent became much warmer, much closer to the rest of the temperature of the rest of the room. Obviously, as the air from the kitchen is being drawn out, that means that the cold air can't get in. But obviously, as you're extracting warm air from the house, that's pulling cold air in from somewhere else. So that is not a solution to leave the fan on all the time. So what I'm thinking in this situation is that I'll look to see if I can find some sort of one-way valve that I can attach to the vent, probably on the outside. Maybe, I don't really know if I can get easy access to the actual tube itself. But I'm going to look for a sort of one-way valve that I can put on the outside that will prevent the cold wind blowing into the kitchen. So that's my plan for that one. But we shall see if that works. I'll do a before and after when I've done anything that I can think of to improve the situation. But for now, this is just a sort of a demonstration of what the house is currently looking like. I'm not showing you any of the actual solutions in this particular video. But yeah, I just carried on walking around the kitchen, and you can see this is the kettle, which is still warmer than the rest of the kitchen. And we'd had our teas and coffees probably, I don't know, half an hour before I recorded this, and you can see it's still slightly warmer than the rest of the kitchen, which I found really interesting. And again, you can see the very cold metal window frames, much colder than the rest of the room. So there you go. Oh, and also there's Kat's coffee cup just sat there. So yeah, it's incredible that the even small changes in temperature, you can see them in these images, which I find absolutely fascinating. So yeah, let's carry on. So now I went into the garage, and I was actually quite pleased to see that the garage door was about the same temperature as the floor and the ceiling. Obviously, the garage is cooler than the rest of the house. It's not heated in there. It is part of the house, but it does have insulation in the walls between the house and the garage. So it's a little bit cooler in the garage, but it was interesting to see that the actual door itself wasn't a load less warm than the rest of the garage. However, obviously the edges around the actual garage door are a fair bit cooler than the door itself. I don't think there's a lot I can do about that either, honestly. But yeah, that was just really interesting to see. And you can see, yeah, there's the real view from the camera, the actual real camera on the phone, as opposed to the thermal camera. And you can see we've got this rubber seal along the bottom. And it's reasonably well sealed up the sides, but clearly it's not as airtight and as thermal tight as the rest of the door. So yeah, I found that interesting as well. Here we go. So this is really interesting. I'm going to pause it again. We are now in our hallway. So we've got the stairs up on the right hand side there. This is our front door, and this is a large window up above the door in our sort of double height atrium sort of area. This is our light bulb. This is an LED light bulb, but even so, you can see that it's actually 54 degrees, which is interesting. So despite the fact that these are low energy light bulbs, they still lose a little bit of energy through heat, and as is anything that's electrically powered, it will lose something through heat. So yeah, that was interesting as well. But here again, the door frame is very much colder than the rest of the room. I'm going to do a bit of a close-up in a second, but yeah, you can see particularly along the bottom edge here and up the side. If I'm going to pause it once again, so this very dark strip, which is several degrees, at least 3.5 degrees lower than the rest of the door and the floor there. And in particular, so I'm going to change back to the visible view here. You can see again, the door has this metal frame running around and along the bottom here. So I think that's the cold bit. Interestingly, the seam of the door isn't letting much heat out. If I pause it here, you can see actually that seam is pretty good. So that's reassuring. I think a little bit is leaking through the bottom here, but the rest of that is not really any colder than the rest of the door. So I think that seal is good, but I'm going to look into seeing if I can do something about the bottom here. And again, anything I can do with these metal frames would be beneficial. I'm wondering if I can get some sort of insulated tape that I can stick over it. I don't know. It doesn't seem like a very elegant solution, but that's the only thing I can think of at the moment. But yeah. Not sure. That's something to look into. Oh yeah, and the other thing is the letterbox here, right down at the bottom. Only a tiny bit of cold leaking around that, so that's actually quite reassuring as well. Good to see that. So now I'm in the bedroom. Once again, you can see the very cold window frames. This is our lovely view out of our bedroom window. But the other thing that I found it really interesting was this strip of extremely cold wall right above our fitted wardrobes. There's a very sort of cold strip, and actually up here as well in the ceiling there is a little cold spot, which presumably is from the there's going to be some sort of hole in the insulation, or maybe the insulation isn't properly laid in that area. When we first moved into the house a couple of years ago, I did look up in the loft, and I noticed that the insulation was pretty rough and ready in half of the house and decent in the other half. So I actually got the developers to come back and sort it out. And I thought they did a pretty good job, actually. They came and they put another like 6 rolls in or something and filled in all the gaps. But clearly there's a few little spots where some more improvements can be made, like this here. So what I might do is I'm going to go up there and have another peek. You can see it's a couple of degrees cooler, actually, look. I'm going to see, you wouldn't see anything on a regular camera, but yeah, this thermal camera shows it up nicely. Going to go up, see if I can find any spots. There's another one there, look. You notice we haven't got any light fittings in our house yet. We've been in the house 2.5 years. We still haven't got any light fittings. Honestly, we're terrible people. But yeah, these little cold spots, very clear, and something I can definitely do something about. I can go up and have a look in the loft and see if I can tidy up the insulation in there. So that's definitely something I can improve in our loft space, which is something that you wouldn't necessarily know to do if you didn't have a little thermal camera like this. And actually, this is the other interesting thing. All the way around the edge, there's a cold bit in the corner where the ceiling meets the wall. So I presume this is just, I don't know, it's some sort of space between the insulation at the edge of the house, maybe. I don't know. I'll go up in the loft. I'll have a look, and I will report back in a future video, assuming I can do anything about it. So I went into our ensuite then, and I wanted to see whether this vent in our ensuite had a similar problem to the one in the kitchen. Now, interestingly, this is actually very slightly warmer than the rest of the wall here. Now, I can only assume that means that the wind is, so just for reference, this is on the opposite side of the house from the kitchen vent, which means I think what's happening here is warm air is basically getting pushed out of this vent out to the outside world, as opposed to the cold air getting pushed in on the other side of the house. So that's why the one in the kitchen looks cold and this one looks, well, about the same temperature as the rest of the house. But again, we've got this same issue with a little bit of cold right along the corner between the ceiling and the wall. And once again, very cold window frames. And just for a bit of fun, I had a look at myself in the mirror, because you can see the heat is also reflected by the mirror as well as the visible light, which I thought was interesting as well. Right, so this is that same atrium area where I was before, but now I'm looking at the big window up at the top of the roof there, and you can see once again we've got these patches of cold right along the edges where the wall joins the ceiling, and a few little cold patches in the ceiling as well there. So that'll be another situation where there's the insulation isn't laid quite right, and another one there you can see. That was really interesting. And here's another fun thing. This little bright spot in the middle where it's a couple of degrees, well, a degree or so warmer than the rest of the ceiling, that's the smoke detector. So again, anything that's got some power running to it will have a small amount of residual heat created from that. But one thing that I did find reassuring was this spot here actually is the loft hatch. I'm going to show you that in close up in a little bit. But yeah, once again, any joins between ceiling and roof and the walls, there seems to be a cold gap. But yeah, the loft hatch, which you would think normally would probably leak out some heat, actually not too bad in our case. Pretty good seal, it seems. It's got some very thick polystyrene above that, actually built into the hatch itself. And the seal seems to be pretty good, so we're not losing any heat through the loft hatch, which I'm pleased about. So that's one good thing at least. So then I came outside the house to see how it compared to viewing the house from the inside. And once again, the window frames are the big standout here. Look at all the heat leaking out through these window frames. It's ridiculous. Just so incredibly stark here. The walls very sort of uniform in temperature, but yeah, the window frames are all extremely warm in comparison, which means that a lot of the heat is leaking out the house through the window frames. Yeah, so what I've done here, this temperature reading in the middle, on the actual camera itself, you can see a little crosshair, and you can line that up with whatever you want, and that will give you the measurement of whatever you're pointing at. You can see it's showing the hot spot here is 11 degrees, and then the cold spot, that's the sky up there. But you can actually tell it to measure exactly in the center, and you can then get a sort of better measurement directly of whatever you're hovering over. And you can see in this case I'm hovering over the window frame. There is 10 degrees, and the wall was 8.5. Back over the window frame, 10.5. So it's at least 2 degrees warmer than the rest of the wall. So clearly a lot of heat is leaking out. And once again, actually, this is actually the outside vent for the bathroom, which is here, and that's the outside of where the extractor fan would then spit the air out. And you can see again, this is a couple of degrees warmer than the rest of the wall, so heat is obviously leaking out through that vent, and presumably because the kitchen is on the wall on this side of the house over here. The ensuite where I was before was over that side, so I think the wind is blowing from right to left and is pushing all the warm air from the house out through these other vents. I think that's what's happening, which is why the kitchen was cold and these vents are showing up warm on the outside of the house. So yeah, I think if I can attach a one-way valve there somehow, that would help prevent. Actually, well, I'm not sure. It would prevent the cold air going in, but how would I stop the warm air coming out? I suppose if there's less cold air getting pushed into the house, then less warm air is getting pushed out. So maybe that'll be fine. But yeah, anyway, let's carry on. So I think I'm nearly at the end here, but yeah, you can see me again reflected in the actual glass of the window there, which is fun as well. So there you go. That's the end of the little house tour with the thermal camera. I hope you found that as interesting as I did. I was absolutely fascinated by what I found. So I'm going to have a think about what I'm going to do about these various cold spots. I think the loft I can definitely do something about. The window frames, no idea. If anyone knows of a good solution to that, let me know. The vents, I can definitely do something about that with some one-way valves. But otherwise, yeah, I don't know how much that's going to help the heating, but it certainly can't hurt. But the benefit now that I've got this little thermal camera is I can take it around all my friends' and family's houses and do the same for them and show them where they're leaking out heat from their houses. So yeah, hopefully it will be useful for them as well. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with the TOPDON TC001 thermal camera. If it's the sort of thing you think you might be interested in, take a look in the description. There's a couple of links to both the Android and the Apple versions of the camera. So go and check those out. It's currently on sale for Black Friday. If you're watching this, early doors, go check it out. You might find a decent discount. Well, that's it for now. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.